Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of having a good yoga mat when you're having a yoga practice. Um, I've had a lot of students that have asked me recently, what kind of mat should I be using and do I have any recommendations? And so I thought I'd just come here and explain the different types of mats that there are and what kind of mat might be good for you depending on the type of class that you're taking. Now granted, when I first started doing yoga, I really didn't have a mat, and many times even today, I don't always use a mat if I'm home practicing or if I'm outside practicing. I like to just have my hands on the grass or the dirt or even the living room floor, but a good mat is kind of important to support your practice. And there are a lot of different types of mats, so depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a hot yoga class or if you're doing a non-hot yoga class, that can make a difference with your hands slipping. If your hands are wet and sweaty, you might need to get a hot yoga mat or a towel to go on top. But mostly I wanted to talk, sometimes people come in to class and they want a really cushy mat, one of those ones that are really, really thick. And now there's nothing wrong with those types of mats. However, what they can do is they can make it really hard for you to balance on. And although sometimes when people have knee issues, or they want a little bit more of a cushion mat, they'll buy those mats, but what ends up happening is those mats, the ones that are really thick, they're really more designed for working out. And if you're in a yoga pose like warrior or you're in down dog, those mats tend to stretch. So, and if you're in, tree pose or any kind of balancing pose, because they're so spongy, it makes it really, really hard to balance. So although they might feel good on your back and on your knees, they're not exactly the best pick for a yoga class, unless you're just doing something really super gentle. And so then, if you're just starting off with yoga, it's perfectly fine to go to anywhere, Target or TJ Maxx or wherever, Amazon, and get just a regular yoga mat. They're pretty basic. A general size, the standard size is 68 long and 24 wide, and I always say to people, try to get 4 or 5 millimeters. So there is a little bit of cushion, but it's not super thick, and they're a little bit more sturdy, that's not so stretchy, so you'll have a little easier time doing all the poses and moving through the sequence. Once you start getting better at yoga, and if you're practicing 3 or more times a day, or a week, I'm sorry, a day, but a week, you might want to invest in something a little bit more durable. So for example, this is a Manduka mat. It's a Manduka Pro. It's actually the Pro Light, so it's not quite as thick. The Pro is a little bit thicker and it's wider. Certainly this is a nice mat. It's got a good grip to it. This Pro Light is not too heavy, so you're able to travel with it. It's a little bit thinner, not as wide, so you might want to go with the Pro, not the Pro Light, if it's a little bit bigger, a little more standard size. If you're getting into hot yoga practice, there's a couple different types. The Manduka has one. I know this is another style, a little bit thinner, but it's designed for hot yoga, so you don't need a towel. Same thing with this one. You don't need a towel on top. But if you have something, if you're starting out with a hot yoga class and you just have a regular old yoga mat, you can just get a beach towel and put it on top so your hands, so the towel absorbs the sweat and so your hands aren't slipping. You really gotta try it out. So I would say if you're just starting out yoga, don't go buy $100 or more mat. Just get a regular standard mat and make sure that it's 4 or 5 millimeters. It's a standard length, 68 and 24 wide. They also have extra long, 72. And then there's also these. This is the Eco Mat. It's eco-friendly. It's by Manduka. And again, it's just a preference of what type of mat you want. We have them at the studio that you can try out if you want to try a mat before you go and purchase one. This is nice. Actually, this works really nice for hot yoga. It's got a good grip to it. And although it's not designed for hot yoga, it still works pretty well. And it's eco-friendly, and it's not too heavy, and it's a nice mat. So a lot of different mats that you can choose from. What I say is before you go spend all this money on a yoga mat, maybe try a couple different tries of different types of mats to see what works for you. But what happens when you get a good solid mat, even upgrading from eventually something that's been basic like this, the foundation, you feel more sturdy on your mat, your hands aren't slipping. A lot of these mats have a lifetime warranty, so they're not going to wear out, and if they do, you can get another mat. These basic mats, you probably can't see in the video, but after time, they start to rip and wear out. But certainly they're good. If you're coming to yoga just a couple times a week or even once a week or occasionally, just get a basic mat, see how your practice develops, upgrade down the road when you're ready to either a hot yoga mat, which is good for non-hot too, or just a more sturdy, more well-known mat or an eco mat, and just try to refrain from going to the mats that are super thick. Now if you need more underneath your knees, we have knee pads that are foamy that you can put underneath if you're doing any kneeling poses. Or sometimes what I tell people to do is to double up the mats. You can put 2 of these basic mats. You could pile them on top of each other. It would give you double squishiness. You might still have trouble with the balancing poses if you do that, but still it wouldn't be so stretching when you're in any kind of poses standing wise. And then the other thing that you can do is just fold one mat in half and put it down, like maybe center of your mat, and then put the other mat under. So you might have more cushion this way, but yet it's not affecting where your hands and your feet would be, just where you're kneeling. So you can double up a mat. There's lots of ways to get around the need for having a little more knee support. Like I said, knee pads, or you could put a blanket, one of these blankets here that we have at the studio. You can just fold it and put it underneath your knees. So there's ways to get around that, but again, invest, at least get a regular mat down the road if you're practicing a couple times a week. Invest in a good mat. It'll be with you for a long time. And so that's what I have to say about that. So get a good mat. It makes a difference. And I hope to see you in class.